I'm Stephen Thomas, and I'm the author of The Jokes. The process evolved over quite a long period of time. They started being more straightforwardly riffs on the joke form, where some of the early ones would be like a man walks into a bar and then it would take a stranger turn than a normal joke. But that was just sort of like the seeds of the form. And those earlier ones, a lot of them didn't really work that well. But I liked something about that feeling of the tension between your expectations and then taking it in a different direction than you think it would go. But eventually, just sort of accidentally, just through trial and error, I stumbled on versions of this thing that would, where the result ended up being, I guess, more emotional, or having an actual message that I liked and wanted to stand behind. And just after looking at them and comparing a bunch of different ones, I realized the direction I wanted to go in. So eventually, a lot more of them became sort of more emotional and less jokey. Some early feedback I got when I was showing them to people, someone said, you must really know how to tell a story because you so consistently don't. You so consistently subvert how a story should end. And I appreciated that because I think that is true. And I hope it comes across like when a lot of these stories end in ways that you don't think they're going to end. I hope that just doesn't come across as incompetence. Like, I hope you see, like, this is how that story should have ended, but this is how it ended, in fact. And that is the point of it. You know, it probably is more like prose poetry than I had thought. I kept thinking of it as fiction because a lot of the content, a lot of the like what they were about, it seemed to me, was storytelling, and that thing of like expectations of where a story's going. And so I guess I was thinking of it as fiction in that way. But they're probably, especially the later ones, I think they were like getting more and more, like as they did get more emotional, I think they got more probably like prose poetry. It feels like it sort of snuck up on me, and like I didn't plan it. When I talk about specific jokes with people, like I was talking about one about a kid in a car and he's listening to the radio. I read it at the launch last night, and someone was like, "What does this mean to you?" And I was like, I guess it's about this sort of amoralness of childhood, like that sort of how you feel about evil or good and evil when you're a kid before you understand the consequences of any of that stuff. And I certainly didn't, realized that as I was saying it, and I certainly didn't plan to write a story about the amoralness of childhood, and like certainly couldn't have done that in a story that was like 200 words if I had planned it. The thing of taking jokes and playing with them and writing stories out of that, the whole project was almost like me coming into writing what I wanted to talk about through this sort of trapdoor of form that like I think I wanted to write about things, but I wouldn't let myself write about those things. And so I needed this sort of tricky, formal side door into these issues that once I was there, I could explore the way I wanted to, but I couldn't let myself do that straightforwardly. Originally, I was publishing them online in those triptychs because I guess I thought, like, first of all, like, they're so short that I was just sending them out, and I thought I'd give editors like something to work with as opposed to like 150 words, which just seemed thin. But also because they were like I think they vary in how weird they are. And if you only see one that happens to be very weird, you might not have any idea what you're supposed to get from it. And so I thought if you saw a few of them side by side, you might start to see patterns and start to understand them better. I certainly think there is a connection between the jokes and social media. I write a lot of my writing is through social media, and I think it's like I used to, everyone used to write less on social media before it existed, and now everyone writes more on social media. And I think it is like I've actually I've moved away a little bit from social media writing, where I think once, like at one point I thought this was sort of the answer. This was what everything would be like from here on out. Like books and non-internet writing were somehow obsolete. But I think I've moved away from that recently because I don't know. I guess I did it a lot, and I felt like I came to an end of what was possible in that form. Even now, even today, I was writing stuff on Facebook, and I felt like I was posting stuff that I know people will see, and they won't like it, or they won't like. It's not quite for that audience, but I wanted to write it, and I know that some people would like it. So there's this thing of like, well, there is this other whole market / community / form of like what we call literature, I guess, where the people who want to read and write and talk about things maybe a little more seriously or a little more deeply can go. What I was drawing from humor was the idea of playing with expectations. And I thought it seemed to me like a joke works on fulfilling or not an expectation. Like I think there's some formulation of comedy as something seems funny. When something seems funny, you're simultaneously realizing you're getting something unexpected, and you're realizing that it's not harmful to you. A few months ago, I did try stand-up for the first and so far only time. Because, I don't know, I mean, I think when I read the jokes, I think I've done a lot of readings, and I've developed a distinct like way of doing that. And so I think, I don't know, like I thought, and other people would be like, oh, you're good at that. Maybe this other thing is something you would also be good at. And so I tried it, and it was okay, but I wasn't a natural, I don't think. So this one's called The Fall. A person with A, above average self-consciousness, but also B, an above average ability to tune into other people's wavelengths, is having trouble deciding what to wear, and that problem spirals into a more generalized anxiety, and she decides to email a community member. The email says, "Give me a reason to live." She goes out to her back deck. The sun is hot, and the stadium reaches above town to high heaven. Her roommate's panties have been left out in the rain and are clinging to the railing. The person feels kind of fucked. She's freaking out. A breeze comes off the cemetery, scatters shriveled gumwood leaves across the sidewalk, and fills the person's nostrils with sweet new air. She thinks, "Oh my fucking God, when will the angel of mercy descend for me and pluck out my heart with a talon?" And this one's called The Angel of Mercy. The Angel of Mercy, Sarah, treads the desert floor with a buoyant heart. She has received news from St. Francis of Assisi that she's been granted access to the part of heaven she's been obsessed with since she was a teenager. She stumbles on a pebble. She looks down. She sees signs of a struggle. She descends to her hands and knees and reads the signs. Divots and trenches and ornate messinesses in the sand. It seems, she clutches her head as if in a vision, that one man died here and one man walked away. By the extremity of the earth's dislocation, she feels, they must have been wild men.